Yeah, I have a straightforward empirical question which relates to your last point about fuzzy feelings. And it also relates to the question asked earlier about distinguishing a false belief from a true belief. And I'm wondering, supposing I convince you, I implant a false belief that Roger did something nasty to you 15 years ago, and you start believing this. Now, the question is, when Roger approaches you, you start saying, well, yeah, he did something nasty. But what I'd like to know is, if I measure your galvanic skin response, would you also emotionally respond to him in a similar manner? In other words, can I uncouple these two so that your false belief is primarily a confabulatory, high level, which one is inclined to think it is, but not your gut level, your limbic system knows better, and you go and shake hands with him and say, hi, Roger?
Well, I can tell you my prediction. Partly, let me just say that we did something similar to that. We made people believe that when they were a kid, they went to Disneyland, and they had a very unpleasant experience with the Pluto character, that Pluto persistently, uncomfortably, and inappropriately licked their ear while they were there as a child. And we found that people then don't want to pay as much for a Pluto souvenir. So that's the consequence, the long-range effect. Now, we didn't measure emotions in this particular work, but my grad student, Cara Laney, who is just finishing her PhD and will be going off to England to teach at Leicester after she finishes, did ask about the emotionality of true versus false memories. There's only one study out there that has looked at that, and that is Rich McNally at Harvard's study and his collaborators with the alien abductees, these people who believe they were abducted by aliens. When they think about their abduction experiences, when they listen to scripts of their own personal abduction experience, they show a whole lot of physiological arousal. They show as much arousal as they might show for other traumatic, seemingly genuine traumatic experiences. They show as much arousal as people who haven't been abducted show for their truly traumatic memories. So that's why I believe that I would get a physiological reaction. And what Cara is doing in her dissertation, what she's done now, because she'll be defending soon, is she's got people who have true upsetting memories and then false upsetting memories, like you witness your parents have a physical fight, or you caught your parents having sex. Those are two of her items. And these are self-reported emotions, but she shows, they're just sort of indistinguishable, the emotionality associated with true and false memories. So that leads us to be able to say now that, just because it's detailed, just because it's confident, just because it's delivered with emotion, it doesn't mean it really happened.
So here are two constraints on applying your discoveries to Sam's jihadi problem. First, most jihadis join the jihad through friends, about 70%, about 20% through kin, and almost always now through the internet. There's no gurus out there. There are no recruiters. It's all enlistment. So how do you deal with that? Second, just a theoretical point, core religious beliefs are not false. They lack truth conditions entirely. They are literally senseless, like Aristotle's four-footed idea. And those are entertained in the mind quite differently than false beliefs. So the question is whether those kinds of techniques can both elicit and suppress counterintuitive beliefs without truth conditions.
Yeah, I just don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think a bigger problem is that or maybe another problem that's related to this problem is that we deliver these suggestions. They're very personalized. So it's personalized feedback and a lot of authority, and we are one-on-one with the subjects. And so if you want to influence people on a mass scale, like the producers of leeks and rhubarb would need to, then somehow you have to cull the active ingredient in this methodology and find a way to present it on a mass basis. And so maybe it's some sort of advertising campaign that's going to reach people. But I don't know what it's going to look like.
Would you mind just saying that I actually didn't quite follow the Aristotle thing?
Oh, yes.
I was lost.
So there's a sort of classical philosophical distinction between propositions, which have truth conditions and can be truth or false, and pseudo-propositions, which literally have no meaning, no truth value. And those are usually statements that have the form of propositions, but which violate sort of innate ontological categories. And Aristotle, in the categories, used the idea of four-footed idea. I mean, it's just something we can't even make sense of. And those kinds of ideas are used a lot in metaphors, like woman is wheat. I mean, what does that mean? You just say, it's a figurative expression, now let's give a meaning to it. And many core religious beliefs are very much like that. I mean, there's lots of experiments showing it, that again, they lack truth conditions, but they're senseless, and because they're senseless, they can be entertained as true. P is true, and then, okay, it's true, now let's find a meaning to it. And that meaning shifts quite phenomenally from person to person, and even from time to time. Let me just give you an example. So if you take a Ten Commandment, here's an experiment we did. Take a Ten Commandment like, thou shalt not bow down before false idols, okay? You give it to a person, you do a Dawkins origami experiment. You give it to a person in a room, and you say, okay, what's the meaning of this? And then you invite someone else into the room, and you say, okay, give them the meaning of this. And then you do this through 10 times. And then you give a list of propositions on the board, including the 10th commandment, the third commandment, thou shalt not bow down before false idols. Nobody recognizes it. Nobody, except autistics. They recognize it quite well, and they also do things like Mao's little red book, Let 1,000 Flowers Bloom. We do this with Chinese. Everybody has a different interpretation. They all think they're understanding the same thing. They're communicating with one another. They're emoting with one another. But no one understands the same proposition except autistics. They get it, you know, let a lot of daisies bloom kind of thing. So they're entertained very differently than just beliefs that we can falsify. And these are the core kinds of beliefs that have to be dealt with. And it's not just a simple matter of expunging them and proving them false.
Sam, and then we'll go to lunch, I think. So say something appetitive.
I'll try. I just thought I should briefly respond to your comment, Scott, which I found to be remarkably eloquent and really amazingly censorious in this context. I mean, it was delivered as though with the eye of omniscience. There's no one in this room who understands religion. No one is evincing the intellectual or moral character necessary to really launch the criticism that many of us are attempting. And I take issue with that, and I can certainly respond to your challenge that I am, for instance, delivering a caricature of Islam. But what I want to point out to you is that how I would not be tempted to respond. I would not be even remotely tempted to say that you should respect my beliefs about Islam, or about terrorism, or about jihadis, or about the demographics of morality in this world. That is a move that is not open to me, and it is perfectly obvious to me that the burden is not upon you to respect my beliefs. You and I disagree, and I will give you reasons for believing what I do, and you will evaluate those reasons. But we've heard from you, and we've heard, you know, quite explicitly from other people in this room, these disgruntled sounds about how what I view as to be over broken taboos here, that we're not respecting people's beliefs. There's arrogance here. This is not sufficiently respectful of the very heartfelt beliefs of religious people. That is a double standard that we're paying a terrible price for. I would just invite you to reflect. When was the last time anyone in this room was admonished to respect another person's beliefs about physics, or about biology, or about medicine? We don't respect beliefs, we evaluate reasons. And you know, perhaps now is not the moment for it, but I can assure you that I've read the Quran many times. I find it to be a document, and the larger commentarial literature, the hadith around the Quran, I find this to be a literature that makes ready sense of suicidal terrorism. I would never say that the only possible cause of suicidal terrorism is Islam or is religion. I mean, there are other examples of suicidal terrorists who are running different software on their brains, but Islam is a remarkably good piece of software to be running if you want to justify, if you want to get a cult of martyrdom and you want to justify this kind of violence. And we see this every day, and we can talk about who the 19 hijackers were and how much economics or their own backstory of oppression played in their behavior. I would say none at all, and I would say the evidence is on my side. And I've looked at your own studies, and I know the kinds of interviews you do with jihadis, and we can talk about that data. But the larger critique here of religion is that religion is functioning by a double standard. The double standard is you should be respecting people's certainties when they are totally uncoupled to evidence, when they are actually vacuous in the way that you just described, although I take issue with that. I think the claim that Muhammad heard the perfect word of the creator of the universe in his cave from the Archangel Gabriel, and now the Quran is not a vacuous statement. And it's a statement that's literally believed and constrains the thinking of Muslims. So anyway, I mean, you're a nice guy, I'm a nice guy, we can talk about this. But the problem of religion is that it really does stop conversation in many other contexts.
That will be the last thing, then we go to lunch, yeah, because we actually have no more tape.
Sam, I think you're running your own record. I never said anything about respecting anything. I said understanding it. And let me give you... Yes. But I never said anything about respecting those kinds of beliefs. Let me give you an example.
I was going to other people like Aaron Shriver, who's a very bright person, who said yesterday, answered by
Let me just respond to this one.
Well,
point.
but there's only one mic, and it sounds like a very interesting discussion. And we've got... No, I'm going to actually have to tell you that we actually are just about to run out of tape. I really regret that. But we can pick this up in the afternoon session, and we'll be glad to have you exchange comments then.